was a great addition. I know a lot of Hoodats weren't very happy about the money they went out and spent on Fleener, but I think it's a great addition, a guy who can come in, a big 6'6" body, kind of similar to Jimmy Graham in size, a guy who can go up and get the football. I've always liked Josh Hill. It's just, with Josh Hill, it's almost as if he can't make that next step, or at least we haven't seen that lately. And a big thing with Josh Hill last year was that it was a guy we expected to be able to take that next step, take the starting job, and replace Jimmy Graham. He ends up getting beat out for that number one position by Ben Watson, who has a career season. So Josh Hill, a bubble guy for me. I think Hooman makes the roster because of his blocking ability, along with his ability to catch passes. So is it going to be Josh Hill who gets that third tight end spot? Is it going to be Allen? Is it going to be Manhurts?
Yeah. Well, because I heard Allen, he's still a little bit raw, but Coach really liked the athletic ability he has. Manhurst has been pretty off and on a little from the dialogue I've been listening to and reading. So we shall see what's going to happen with these guys at tight end as well. Hopefully we can figure out if we have the real deal in Josh Hill or if we got the, like you say, the bubble guy, right? So talking about bubble guys, let's go to the guards right now. I really was listening and really wanted to hear more about Landon Turner, the young kid who was undrafted out of the University of North Carolina. But, Coach, I hadn't heard much going on with him. Have you?
No, I haven't, and you're not going to hear a whole lot, to tell you the truth, unless you're there seeing it, and even then without the coach's video, you're not going to see a whole lot, or hear a whole lot, especially because most of the media is going to focus on the skilled position. So it's very difficult to evaluate offensive line play, or even defensive line play, but especially offensive line play, unless you've got the right video to be able to get on the side and study. So it's not surprising that we're not hearing much about what's going on in the offensive line, unless somebody's getting beat in one-on-one pass rush, or there's an obvious bust somewhere. So there, certainly a lot is expected of Turner. We hear some good things on occasion from somebody like Jack Allen, even though he's kind of short to play in the offensive line. But we heard some good things. He was mentioned at least by Peyton, and that's when you hear about offensive linemen, is when Peyton brings it up in a news conference. But you're not going to get much accurate information from most reports, because it's very difficult live to be able to evaluate that if you know what you're looking at, because without video you really can't study what's actually happening.
Gotcha. All right, our beloved Drew Brees. We will talk a little bit more about him after listening to his comments on today with reporters. Drew, as well as Tom Brady, those guys played against one another when Drew was at Purdue and Tom Brady was at the University of Michigan. Drew finally reflected on how they lost big time in the big house. So let's take a quick listen to the interview that Drew Brees gave with the reporters on today.
I've been told a series or so. Yeah.
At this point in time in the training camp, anxious to finally get to a game as opposed to practice?
Yeah. I mean, we've had a lot of install, we've had a lot of practice time, and now you like the opportunity to go out and apply it in a game.
You kind of understand. I mean, it's been a long time since you were that young player in the league, but you understand what these other young players on the team, and even some of the veterans are feeling.
Yeah.
When you go through an entire training camp, and maybe it comes down to you having to prove it on the field in the preseason game to keep your roster spot.
Yeah, you do. I mean, at the end of the day, the off season is phases, right? It's what does this guy look like in the weight room and from a conditioning standpoint, and then what does he look like in OTAs with.
All right, sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. A little blip in the interview. So we're going to talk a little bit more. But what Drew Brees was pretty much telling everybody is that you kind of look at some of the guys who are new to the team and you wonder how they're going to perform. And the real deal is really getting onto the field. So that was interesting. But also he talked more about his contract. Of course, people want to know what was going on with his contract. He said there's no activity there, Professor. Alarm, no alarm. Let's just go on. What do you think?
I really, to be honest with you, I have not given it much thought, to be honest, because the Saints are known to work things out.
Sound like you and Loomis. You sound like you, Loomis. You haven't given it much thought.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I really have not. I've seen this with the Saints time and time again, and I remember I was sitting here talking to Frank Jones, who used to do our NFL Huddle show, and we were talking about all of that, and they usually get it worked out. I don't know what's in the head of Coach Payton or Mickey Loomis. That's kind of how me and Frank ended the discussion, which was highly debated. And he brought up a valid point. I don't know what the Saints are thinking because we was debating where is the heir apparent to Drew Brees. And as I keep stating, I'm a planner. It's just how I am because of the line of works and things I've done. Drew Brees is going to be 38 in January. I don't know, and Bobby brought up a very great point. One thing that I have stated time and time again is that some things Coach Payton is very impatient. They gave up on, Griffith very quickly, and Bobby brought up a good point today. He and Deuce and Deke. He said what he sees of Griffith versus Grayson, the Saints should have kept Griffith because he's nowhere near at all where Griffith was, which was very alarming to me. And then Deuce brought up the better point. How in the world is the guy going to ever get better? Because his season is preseason. If Drew gets hurt, then Luke is playing. He's not going to play at all for the next 2 or 3 years. So I think the Saints made a terrible mistake last year when it was, out of the playoff hunt and not allowing this guy to play in live game action. So now preseason is all we have to go on. So I'm hoping that they will allow him to play most of the game, the first 2 preseason games, so we can see what strive or improvements that he may have made. Right now, the Saints are not in a position to lose Drew Brees, to be quite honest. You don't have anything behind him. I mean, you have Luke McCollum, but he's 35, and Luke has not won a whole lot of games. He played well last year. He's an adequate backup. Thank God for that. But I mean, Drew Brees has all of the everything is on his side right now. I look for Drew to go out here and have a spectacular year, and then guess what? You may have to pay him even more money because you don't have anything on the bench that says, okay, we can, we have somebody that is the future right now. You just don't know. So yeah. I don't know what the Saints are going to do, to be quite honest with you, besides have to pay Drew.
Yeah, even if we franchise him, you're going to have to pay him a whole lot. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Saints play this out. Or they could be playing coy with us, Brendan. They could be saying, giving us the okie doke, so to speak, and telling what's going on. And right before the season start, he inks a new deal.
I mean, it's one of those things that it's almost a little alarming that nothing's been done. But like you said, you never know. They can feed us, the media, whatever they want to tell us, and we're going to take their word for it. You never know. But the one thing I'm looking at Drew, and on one side of it, you want Drew to get paid because the savior of this franchise, and he's done so many things, and he's a first-ballot Hall of Famer, et cetera, et cetera. But then I'm looking at guys like Tom Brady, who goes and takes pay cuts for this team. They can go out and get talent so they can continue to be successful.
Brendan?
Did you get any of that?
Okay, so I heard successful.
Okay, so you look at Tom Brady and everything, taking pay cuts so we can be successful and that team can continue to compete. So I'm looking at Drew Brees with this new deal, and does Drew want the money? A guy who got paid extremely well in his first contract with the Saints, extremely well with his second contract with the Saints. I'm looking at Drew and going, Drew, are you going to go after the money, or are you going to take the higher road, kind of like Tom Brady has, and take a pay cut so the Saints can go out and get weapons so this team can be back where they were in 2009 and 11?
Yeah, I see things much differently than that. First of all, Brees outperformed his first contract dramatically. Remember, he was coming off of injury, so that first contract, he was he got what he could get, but he dramatically outperformed it. And now when you're looking, and he got paid well in his second contract with the Saints, but now when you're looking at his salary this year at $20 million. That's becoming standard quarterback pay for a top 10 quarterback in the league.
Not even top 10 quarterbacks getting paid that.
Exactly.
Well, isn't Drew due $30 million this year?
No, he's $30 million against the cap. Now you're talking about Mickey Loomis's role in the deal. That they stretched out the contract and backloaded the contract in such a way that he's getting paid $20, but he's costing $30 million against the cap. And that's the issue right now. When you look at the good teams in the league, do they have their quarterback position for the future as unsettled as the Saints do right now? And the answer to that 100% of the time is no. And it would have been not seemingly that difficult a thing to have extended the contract. And that's what they do with Brady. They extend the contract out so that over the life of the contract, Brady's still getting paid. Mm-hmm. But and why it gets kind of redone every year. So it looks like on that year's basis, he's getting paid less money. But then over the life of the contract, you go, oh, well, he's getting paid pretty well there after all. And it doesn't seem this year that once the Saints got under the cap by a little bit, that there was any urgency to get Brees' contract done so that they would have more room under the salary cap. So there's two things a championship and consistent contending teams do that I've noted. And number one is that they get their quarterback position settled early. And they have a succession plan, so to speak, as Professor talked about down the road. And very seldom do you see championship teams saying, oh, well, we'd like to get this player, but we don't have enough room under our cap. They always seems like there's a way that they get good players and still stay under the cap. And those two areas really do concern me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's planning, and make sure that you have the guy that you want. But I think going into the season, they had so many question marks. Would Peyton be our head coach? And I guess not pulling the trigger on Brees before solidifying Peyton was one of the issues there. But, Jeff Duncan brought up a interesting point. He said, could Jimmy Garoppolo be the heir apparent of Drew Brees? And he said, we may want to scout him out in this preseason opener because he may be our next starting quarterback, which is a little far-fetched in my opinion, but you never know in the National Football League if something like this could happen, Professor. Professor?
I had to hit the button, turn up Bill. I don't know. I know Bill Belichick and Coach Payton are friends, but New England has a 40-year quarterback. So I don't know, not to at all question Mr. Duncan because he's an outstanding journalist. I do know that Coach Payton and Coach Belichick are great friends, and I really still believe that deep down inside that he probably called Coach Payton first and offered Chandler Jones to the Saints, and the Saints can do it. And this is something that Dad just alluded to. I've been saying for years. Everybody is always bragging on Mickey Loomis and them and what they do with the undrafted. And, yeah, that's great, but I still say that the Saints have bottled up a lot of things. because real